In week 5, we saw a couple backup running backs get the opportunity to start and potentially save your Guillotine season. Players like Rashad White, Amari DiMercado, and Rico Dowdle all had the chance, and some performed, some didn't. Let's talk about it, and let's start with this 49ers Rams game on Thursday night. The player I want to talk about here to start is going to be Brock Purdy. Not shown on the screen, he was listed out for this game. Brock Purdy might miss extended time, and considering that Mac Jones played fairly well, I mean, enough for them to win this game, in which they were heavily underdogged, Mac Jones might continue playing for a couple weeks. Brock Purdy might be on your waivers, and he might want to stay there. If you want him as a backup quarterback, might be worth 1% to 2% of your FAAB. I would try and pick him up for free if you really wanted him, or simply leave him there, because by the time he gets back, he might not be worth starting. The only other 49er I want to talk about here is going to be Brian Robinson Jr. A couple of you out there might be starting Brian Robinson Jr., especially because of bye weeks, especially in deeper leagues. It does not look like this is a split backfield between McCaffrey and Brian Robinson Jr., even in a game with a backup quarterback and a heavy rushing attack. Brian Robinson Jr., just 5 carries, 12 yards, no receptions or no targets even, so just 1.2 points. If he hits your waivers or is already on your waivers, you might be looking around 2% to 3%. He's a really strong handcuff, but for right now, he is simply not startable. I encourage you not to start him, but again, maybe a solid bench stash if you'd like. And then we're going to move into this London game between the Vikings and the Browns. And the player I want to highlight here is going to be Jerry Jeudy on the Browns. The Browns had their first start from Dylan Gabriel, who looked okay. I mean, we have a decent rating, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Still to be seen from him. Wasn't terrible, wasn't the best thing we've ever seen. We saw some tight ends get involved. David Njoku and Harold Fannin, I believe, were pretty heavily targeted in this game. And then Jerry Jeudy had a real opportunity to step up here. I mean, you have a rookie quarterback who was probably looking to lean on your number 1 wide receiver. Cedric Tillman just recently went on IR. So Jerry Jeudy needed to step up in this game. Just 5 targets, which is okay, but 2 receptions for 15 yards, 3.5 points. He's not someone you can consistently be starting. Maybe we see a leap in Dylan Gabriel in the coming weeks, but overall, I would hope to not be starting Jerry Jeudy in the meantime. If he's on your waivers, you want to pick him up, shoot for the 1% to 2% range, maybe even try for free. Not a player I'd be aggressively targeting. We've been saying that in previous weeks, and I think that still remains true despite the change of quarterback. Moving into our next game, we have the Colts beatdown of the Raiders. This was an interesting one. We were missing Brock Bowers on the Raiders side. I don't think that was the reason why they lost by 34 points. But more importantly, Geno Smith had a pretty rough day. 10 of you starting him out there, he might have put up around 6 points depending on your league format. Geno Smith, known for his accuracy and consistency, pretty limited upside as a quarterback, but was hopefully going to bring stability to this Raiders team. Now 1-4, Geno with a pretty low rating, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. If you were starting him, I'm sorry. I suggest you drop him. I don't even know that he's worth the bench spot, as he has very limited upside. Surely he will look better with Brock Bowers back on the team. But Geno Smith is not someone I want to be starting in this format. And I don't think he has much long-term upside to have him be worth keeping around. Moving into our next game, we have the Commanders and Chargers. The only player I wanted to talk about here was going to be Amarion Hampton, who actually had to put up a fine day before he went out to injury. But notably, he got injured. I believe it was a high ankle sprain of sorts. But whatever it is, put him on the IR, so he's going to be out until around now week 10-ish. What's nice is that by week 10, he can be startable when he comes back. You might want to give it a game or so, just coming off the injury and reducing risk in a Guillotine format. But he's still worth starting, so if he gets dropped, it's maybe worth putting a really small bid on him just to stash him. And if you already have him, definitely keep him on your IR, even if that means dropping a player like James Conner or Malik Neighbors. Amarion Hampton actually has value that you want to maintain for the rest of the season. Sure, we don't know what that may be as of right now, and we'll certainly monitor the news in the coming days. But yeah, very worthwhile IR stash if you have him or can get him on the cheap. Moving into our next game, we have the Texans beat down to the Ravens. Ravens now moving to 1-4. Looked super rough out there. We have Cooper Rush starting in place of Lamar Jackson. The player I want to talk about here is going to be Woody Marks. I was extremely excited about Woody Marks coming into this week. He took over a lot of the rushing from Nick Chubb last week, and I believe a lot of times these rookie running backs take a few weeks to develop and have a huge opportunity to take over from an incumbent, inefficient running back, which I think at this point in his career, Nick Chubb is. And so when Woody Marks started trending upwards, taking away some of the carries from Nick Chubb, I believe that he was fully cemented in as a starter, and it appears that he might not quite be there yet. Nick Chubb leading the team in carries this week, leading the team in yards, got the touchdown. Woody Marks still did fine, 7 carries, 24 yards, but Dameon Pierce also 7 carries, 21 yards. So Woody Marks kind of still in the mix of things, rather than where we wanted to see him kind of taking over this RB1 role on the team. Woody Marks did get 1 target, which is also a little bit difficult to work with. Last week he was very heavily involved in the receiving game, which was super encouraging. If he is back down to these 1 target numbers, and last week was more of an exception of a game, then we are certainly going to be less interested in Woody Marks. He's definitely worth a bench spot. He has upside. We saw it last week. If we can acquire him cheaply, we want to do so. I would look to try and get him around 2 to 3%, and then stash him on your bench for a week or two. You'll likely know what he is after that, and then he's either back in your starting roster in a week or 2 from now, or he's going to be dropped for a better player when they come along. But definitely worth consideration. Do not forget about him. He is a name to monitor. And then moving on to one of the most surprising and tough watches of the week was this Titans win over the Cardinals. This is the Titans' first win of the season in quite an eventful fashion. If you have not watched it, I definitely recommend checking out the highlights of this one. The 2 players I want to highlight here, as mentioned in the intro, we have Amari DiMercato, as opposed to the Rashad White and Rico Dowdles of the world, who really stepped up in the place of their injured running backs. Amari DiMercato, who had the opportunity to step up in place of the injured James Conner and Trey Benson, who are going to be out for the rest of the season. Competing with Michael Carter and Bam or Zonovan Knight, presumably had the starting role, as he had been the RB3 coming into the season and was then the RB2 when James Conner went down. Definitely lost weight to Michael Carter. I mean, we can see the carry difference here between DiMercato and Carter, 18 versus 3. And then DiMercato with a costly mistake and a fumble at the goal line. If you saw his coach, I believe that's Jonathan Gannon, curse him out on the sidelines. It was pretty brutal. And the carries do not reflect well for him. He's not someone I really want to be targeting. I don't know that he's even worth the bench spot unless you have nobody better to hold. I think he's someone that should be dropped for right now, which is really unfortunate because I think a lot of people may have spent on him coming into this week and had a lot of high hopes on him. It seems like Michael Carter is the guy to have there. And then on the other side of the ball, we have Alec Iomanner. Someone I mentioned in previous weeks. I think he has a lot of potential on this Titans passing attack. Cam Ward has continued to look pretty good. And Alec was targeted 4 times, 2 receptions, 18 yards. It's just 3.8 points. It seems like he is not getting as involved as he was in previous weeks where he was much more heavily targeted. Calvin Ridley had a little bit of a bounce back game himself. As you can see, 10 targets, ended with 131 yards. Alec is certainly interesting. He still has upside. I believe he's probably the second best receiver on this team. And so if you want to go acquire him and stash him on your bench, I think that's great. I do not think he should be starting right now, but he's worth the bench stash of 0 or 1% of your FAAB if you think you can get him for that. And then another player who I thought was maybe a flex player coming into this week was Jalen Tolbert of the Dallas Cowboys. We had CeeDee Lamb out in this game, and the Cowboys passing attack had looked pretty good. I believe Tolbert had a pretty good week himself last week in Lamb's absence. But as you may be able to notice, Tolbert is nowhere to be seen on this Dallas receiving numbers. Tolbert was not, or I guess he had 1 target but 0 receptions, put up no numbers on this receiving chart. He's not someone that we want to be starting going forward. He's not worth the bench stash. He's sure maybe the wide receiver 2 on this team, but it seems like the Cowboys, in the lack of CeeDee Lamb's presence, have been using Jake Ferguson very, very aggressively. I mean, we can see here he had 9 targets, And then they've also been aggressively running the ball, with Javonte Williams especially, and that's been effective. And so if they're going to win games and that's going to work, I think they will keep to that. I think Jalen Tolbert will still have his weeks where he'll have a couple of targets, be serviceable, but I wouldn't be betting on it. And so I think Jalen Tolbert, without much upside, is probably worth a drop at this point. Moving forward into the Sunday night football game, we had the Patriots and the Bills. Drake May helped hand the Bills their first loss of the season, which I believe is the last undefeated team prior to this game. And there's a couple players I want to talk about here. James Cook, notably, 15 carries, which is great, but for only 49 yards, no touchdowns, I believe only one target, no receptions. Yep. And so that's going to be about 4.9 points. James Cook is still a great player. We see running backs who are not predominantly pass catchers like James Cook do much better in positive game scripts and in winning games. And he's been great in prior weeks as the Bills have been winning. I think the Bills project to win plenty more games in the future. And I think that James Cook is someone you ultimately want on your roster. I think he remains a top 10 to top 12 running back for the rest of the season. And if he hits your waivers or is available in a trade of some sorts, you should be aggressively bidding to go get him. I would personally recommend around the 14 to 16% range, somewhere in those mid-teens. I think people might be down on him after a week like this. He also does have a strong name, and so he might go for much, much higher. You can push up into the high teens, maybe low 20s if you really desperately need a running back, especially as these bye weeks progress. But we do not want to be bidding on him like a top 5 running back, somewhere in that low RB1 range. And then one other player who has really fascinated me thus far is Travion Henderson. Again, super talented, lots of potential rookie running back out of Ohio State. He was 6 carries this week, splitting time with Gibson and Stevenson yet again. No touchdown, and then, let's see, he was 2 of 3 for 3 yards, putting up about 4.7 points in PPR leagues out there. And so Henderson has seemingly the clearest path forward to take over a running back role on a solid Patriots team. I mean, 3-2, coming off a win against the division-leading Bills. Gibson is going to be out for the rest of the season. He's on your team. You can drop him. And Ramondre Stevenson fumbled yet again in this game. I don't know how long the Patriots are going to be willing to put up with this. Ramondre Stevenson has the most fumbles of any skill position player in the NFL. I believe tied maybe with Bryce Young, quarterback. But quarterback skill position, a little bit of a different thing. Nonetheless, Ramondre Stevenson's up there, and I think he's on a very short lease with his Patriots staff. It amazes me that he still led the team in carries this week. I think it's just a matter of time before Travion Henderson takes over that running back 1 role. I wouldn't break the bank on him, but I really do think he has potential, and we see rookie running backs like this break out later in the season or even into the mid-season. And so if you hit your waivers, I'd be bidding in the high-ish single digits, maybe in the 5 to 8% range. Again, like before, depending on how much you need a running back, how much you need to fill in, versus if you're just taking him for the bench upside, maybe a little bit on the lower end. But definitely worth a look. And then for this week, I think there was not as many significant players who underperformed or were worth talking about. And so I do want to go over a couple players who were either late outs or were on bye this week, as teams that had these players are more likely to have dropped them or have been eliminated rather. And the first one is going to be Brock Bowers. As mentioned earlier, Brock Bowers not active for the Raiders game. Geno Smith did not look particularly good. And even as a season so far, Brock Bowers has not looked great. He was something we talked about in last week's video, and now missing a game on top of it is certainly a rough look. I still hold the opinion that even with a mediocre quarterback and even on a not great Raiders team, Brock Bowers is still the tight end 1, tight end 2, maybe the tight end 3 at the lowest. He's someone you want to be bidding aggressively to get. If he is the tight end 3, that means you can theoretically start him until pretty much the end of the season. And so you want to try and acquire a player like that. His touchdowns haven't been there. I mean, you can see here Trey Tucker with 4 touchdowns to Brock Bowers 0. Even Jacoby Myers having 0 touchdowns. I think it's a matter of due time. It'll certainly come. We should be looking to bid aggressively on Brock Bowers, probably in the high teens to low 20s. I'd say the 18 to 23% range. Is just a player you can start the rest of the season, and we want to look to add those guys to our teams. Another player who missed this week was Lamar Jackson, as mentioned very briefly earlier. There's no stats in particular to show. I mean, we know who Lamar Jackson is. We've seen plenty of him. He's going to be a top 3 quarterback when healthy. Super consistent because of the rushing upside. Like Brock Bowers, he's a player we can start until the end of the year. And so even though he missed this week, I would still be bidding fairly aggressively to get him. We don't bid aggressively on quarterbacks in the same way we do other positions. So aggressively for quarterback for me might look to be about 11 to 13%. You can push up to maybe even the 16% range if you feel really strongly about your team and want to have a player for the future weeks. Lamar Jackson, someone you want to go acquire. He's going to be dropped in a lot of places as people might have been forced to start the Geno Smiths of the world. Another player, briefly mentioned earlier, we have Terry McLaurin, missed the Commanders game. Deebo Samuel has looked really good for this team. But besides that, we have not seen too many other players step up. Zach Ertz hasn't looked his finest. Ben Sinnott, second-year tight end, hasn't stepped up in place of him. We have a second-year Luke McCaffrey, who's looked okay and has actually shown some flashes, but hasn't quite taken on this dominant wide receiver 3 role. And then players like Chris Moore, Jalen Lane, just not really making a huge impact on this offense. I think right now it really runs through Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel in the passing game, mixed in with a little bit of Zach Ertz and Luke McCaffrey. We've seen a lot of people in the running game step up, and Jaden Daniels being a rushing quarterback, we're going to see plenty of that as well. But Terry McLaurin, someone you want to get. Should be back next week, I believe. If you can get him on the cheap, 5 to 7%, I would do it. Even if you don't want to start him week 1 or this upcoming week, that is okay. I think he's worth the bench stash. He's a player you will probably be starting for most of the rest of the season, say around the week 12 range. And so that's a player I want to look to acquire. A team that was on bye was going to be the Chicago Bears. 2 players there that you might really want to look to acquire are going to be DeAndre Swift and Rome Odunze. For DeAndre Swift, we haven't seen anything explosive or incredible, nothing that makes you want to break the bank on him. But again, we're going to be going through these tough bye weeks, and that means we're going to need solid fill-in running backs. I think DeAndre Swift is a perfect place for that. You can be bidding lightly on him around the 5 to 6% range. I wouldn't really push it too much on him because you don't want to be starting him later in the year. Very limited upside, unless maybe the Bears offense does incredible and he's the primary benefactor of that. But yeah, really just a fill-in for DeAndre Swift. But Rome Odunze looks incredible. This is his breakout year, year 2 for him. DJ Moore looks certainly fine, but this is all about Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze might be a top 12 wide receiver going forward. And now he's post-bye. So he, if he remains healthy, is good to go for the rest of the season. If you're a top 12 receiver, you're starting till the last 3 or 4 weeks, even in like a flex spot. So I'd bid fairly aggressively to get Rome Odunze. And sure, he has a name, but not a big name brand like a James Cook might. So you might be able to get him for cheaper than other players. I would look to acquire him in the 9 to 12% range. Or, again, if you can, possibly make a trade for him. I think it's definitely worth the addition. Another team on bye, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The primary player I want to talk about here is going to be DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf, serviceable player, maybe limited upside. We haven't seen huge upside from him. We've certainly seen big plays, but I don't know that he's like a wide receiver 1 going forward. He's just more of a consistent wide receiver 2 that will have bigger weeks and smaller weeks. Not in the same way of an A.J. Brown, but he should be in your lineup. You're going to see him dropped in a bunch of places. Again, people who are not able to adequately fill him on this first set of buys. So if DK Metcalf hits your waivers, I'd look around the 7 to 9% range. He has a bigger name. Between him and Odunze, I would certainly rather Odunze, but DK Metcalf still worth a flex play for many weeks ahead. Another team on bye, we have the Green Bay Packers. The best player I want to talk about there is going to be Josh Jacobs. We have still not seen a running back 2 in this offense step up the way that I think the Packers have said to the public they've wanted. Maybe secretly they've known all along it's just going to be Josh Jacobs. But at least that's what we've seen. Josh Jacobs has been great. He's similar to James Cook in that running back 10 to 12 range. He's on a great team, maybe a little bit better of a pass catcher. Still plenty of touchdown upside on this team. So if he's on your waivers because of other underperforming teams who weren't able to survive the bye week, look around the like 14 to 16% range. Similar to James Cook, you can push up to the high teens, low 20s if you really need a running back fill-in. And the nice part about this is, again, we are picking up a player who's now post-bye, meaning if he's not injured, he can be starting on your team till the last 3 or 4 weeks. Another player I'll quickly talk about on the Packers here is going to be Tucker Kraft. I think Tucker Kraft hasn't looked phenomenal in the sense that he's not in the Brock Bowers to Trey McBride range, but he has looked really, really good. He might be the tight end 3 or 4 moving forward. And as mentioned with the Brock Bowers thing, if you have the tight end 3 or 4, that is someone starting until the very, very end of your year. And so I'd actually be looking to bid fairly aggressively on Tucker Kraft if he is out there on waivers, probably around the 10% range, which sounds very strong. That was close to the Lamar Jackson range earlier. And although that may sound weird, I think acquiring a player who you can start to the end of the year is a player you want to acquire like Lamar Jackson, like Tucker Kraft. And so we want to be bidding fairly aggressively to get those players who you can start every week, feel good about, and even keep into this late season stretch. Last team on bye we want to talk about is going to be the Falcons. We're going to talk about their 2 main playmakers in Bijan Robinson, who is leading the team in both rushing and receiving yardage. Bijan, probably a top 3 pick in your league, totally shown why he's deserved that. Super talented, might be the running back 1 moving forward. If he hits your waivers because of unfortunate fill-ins for another team, certainly stinks for them. Great opportunity for you. You may see him go for 30, 40, 50%. There might be teams that really feel like they need him or just are willing to spend high prices to get him. I would still toss in a bid on him. I would be in the low 20s. I'd be about 21 to 26%. You can push that up a bit if you really feel like your team is struggling and needs the help. But we should not be spending more than 30% on him, even though he's super talented. We're going to see many deals on similarly great players. I know Bijan's incredibly talented, and we want to be bidding aggressively on him, but we also still don't want to completely break the bank on him. And then the last player here, Drake London, looked pretty good. He's had a little bit of an up and down week thing, but I think he will stabilize as the season goes on. Only the 1 touchdown, I believe, here. Definitely more potential for that in the future. I think Drake London's the player that maybe is a wide receiver 8 going forward, which, again, that means he can be your flex in the final championship week. So we want to be bidding aggressively to get him. If he hits your waivers, you want to be a little bit less than Bijan, probably also in that 16% range, maybe even push it up a little bit higher to the 18 to low 20s range. Same concept as a James Cook or Josh Jacobs, where we want these players till the end of the season. They are going to be great. They're now going to be post-bye in the case of Josh Jacobs. And so we want to look to acquire them. One quick shout out for the end of this video. We've just released the chopfantasyfootball.com website. The goal with this, I've been releasing the weekly spreadsheets, and now it's all going to be in one place. Every week you can come on here, you can bookmark it on your computer, come to the same website on your phone, and I will update this weekly FAAB guide to show whatever the most recent week is. Similarly, I'll post whatever the most recent video is, which will be the one that I'm recording right now. And then any other bonus videos I make, I'll oftentimes create a random strategy video, maybe a player highlights video. I'm hoping to do some interviews in the future. Anything like that will be posted down here, just bonus content. If you're interested in learning more about the methodology and about the thought process, you can check that out. This is just another link to copy the FAAB guide, which again, you can be done by just clicking here, or a direct link to the YouTube if you want to go check out what else is on there. But hopefully you're seeing that now. So yeah, definitely check this out. I'm going to be building it out in the coming weeks. This is really just a foundation for it. But I think it'll be a really cool resource to kind of centralize everything. And again, so you don't have to keep finding the most recent copy of it. It'll all be here. And so yeah, hopefully this helps. Good luck to you and stay safe out there.